pasuk says, Arucha me'eretz mido rachava miniyam, which means that the Torah is infinite. Arucha me'eretz mida, the measure of the Torah is longer than the earth. Urachava miniyam, that the breadth of Torah is deeper than the sea, broader than the sea. It's a pasuk, and it's a reference to Torah. Arucha me'eretz mida rachava miniyam goes on Torah. So of course this idea has been discussed by the Rabbeim and Chassidishe. The Rebbe talked about it many times. And one of the things which they say is that nigle the Torah is b'mdida v'agbala. Nigle has an end, has a limit. The Alter Rebbe brings it, and the Rebbe talks about it often, and from time to time, there's a concept of a person that's lomat kol ha-Torah kula and even yedea kol ha-Torah kula. It's possible for a person to have learned the whole Torah and to know the whole Torah. Of course, this is not for the ordinary Baal Seichel, but it's b'medida v'agbala, it's measured, it's limited. And it's possible for a person to have learned and to know all of Nigle. So where is the Arucha Meretz Mida? Where's the infinity? And of course the infinity is in the Seides HaTorah, is in Pnimius HaTorah, is in Soid, is in Kabbalah. How? Where do you see it? So of course the foundation of it, the basis for it, is Mikra, is Tanakh, and particularly the Chumash. And of course when you talk about Mikra, when you talk about Tanakh, when you talk about Chumash particularly, it's absolutely measured, right? The Gemara says that there was a group of people called Seifrim, who were Seifrim Esieseha Shel Torah. They counted the letters of the Torah. They knew that the Tanakh is supposed to have Chov Dalet Sfarim, 24 Sfarim, and no more. And we have 5 Sfarim of Chumash. We have 8 Sfarim of Nevi'im and 11 Sfarim of Ksuvim, with a total of 24. And it's very finite. But it's Torah Shebeksav. It's the words and the letters of the Torah are Oisis Atzmim, they're the Eibishter's words. And this finite number of words can be studied and analyzed and dissected and re-examined and reinterpreted ad ein ketz ve'ad ein sof. You can never run out of insights into how to interpret the Torah. It's infinite. It's infinite. It's bli gvul. And of course, the deeper you go into the Torah, the more you access the infinity of the Torah. There's a story from the Baal Shem Tov, which is brought in a Maamar from Alten Rebbe. I've mentioned this in a previous class. Where the Baal Shem Tov said, to every teretz I can ask a kasha, and to every kasha I can ask a teretz, without any end, because there's infinite worlds. Torah exists in each world, and therefore you can never finish limud ha-Torah, particularly pnimius ha-Torah. When you learn Chassidus Chabad, and of course Chassidus Chabad is anchored in the teachings of the Alter Rebbe. Like it says in Teres Sholem, it's a famous quote. The Rebbe Rashab says, Ich bin sich mishtadel, as alles was ich sag is als dem Rebbens. I try that everything I say should be the Rebbe's. And by the earlier Rabbi, when they said the word Rebbe, stam, they meant the Alter Rebbe. It's only by this Rebbe, by our Rebbe, that when he said the Rebbe, he meant the Friedrich Rebbe. But by all the Rebbe before, including the previous Rebbe, when he wanted to say the Rebbe Rashab, he said the Tata, my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. When they said the Rebbe, stam, the word the Rebbe without any additional word was an allusion to the Alter Rebbe. When you learn to the Rebbe Rashab said, everything I say is the Alter Rebbe's, is the Rebbe's. And in those instances where I say something which he is not saying, so then im shagisi havaya tev yechaper, something to that effect. When you learn the Maamar of the Alter Rebbe, of which we have 2,000, right? It says in Ayem Yem that Tzemach Tzedek compiled the Likutei Torah and Torah Or. He chose the choicest of 2,000 Maamarim. And today in print we have a 2,000 Maamarim, more than 2,000 Maamarim, that are already published and available for people to learn. I don't know if this is the same 2,000 Maamarim that Tzemach Tzedek had, or it's different, but nevertheless an enormous percentage of Maamarim that the Alter Rebbe said are already in print. You get a little bit of a taste of this infinity. Alter Rebbe can have a pasuk, a Maamar on a pasuk, 3, 4, or 5 different times. He can ask the same questions and give totally different answers. And you see the infinity, you see the bli gevul, you see the ein sof of Torah. There's a very gishmaka story that I heard about the Rebbe. A similar kind of a story. There was a Yid who lived in New York, whose name was Harav Chaim Zimmerman. Rav Chaim Zimmerman was a Goan Oilam, a Goan Adir. Rav Chaim Zimmerman was one of those Jews that they said about him that he knows Kol HaTeira Kul. He had an extraordinary memory and a very deep understanding, and he knew the whole Torah, as much as you could say such a thing. And he had a relationship with the Rebbe, as did many of the great Goinim of New York. From before the Rebbe was Rebbe, they would come and talk to the Rebbe. The Rebbe was considered, the Rebbe was and is a Chacham and a Gon and so on. And before the Rebbe was Rebbe, the Rebbe had a little bit more time for such people. There was another Yid by the name of Mendel Kasher, who also lived in New York for many years, who knew the Rebbe, the same kind of a man, a Yid who knew Kol HaTeira Kula. So Chaim Zimmerman would come and talk to the Rebbe in learning. Before the Rebbe was Rebbe, he had more time. After the Rebbe became Rebbe, the Rebbe became busier. It was more difficult for him. He used to complain, how come the Rebbe is wasting his time giving brachas to Bobes? He should be learning Torah and giving shiurim and so on. He didn't fully understand and appreciate what the Rebbe is as a Rebbe, as a Nasi Yisroel. But he had many opportunities to come and talk to the Rebbe. In the earlier years, he would come and meet the Rebbe in the hall, and the Bacham would stand and watch two giants wrestling in Melchamta Shel Torah. They didn't understand a single word, but they appreciated the incredible power of these disputes, these debates. So here's a story that I heard from somebody who heard it from the Baal HaMaaseh. I'm not saying any names, but it's a true story. That many years later, in the early 80s, early MEMS, this person who knew Reb Chaim Zimmerman met him on a train. I don't know if he was living in America or visiting America. He met him on a train. And he gave him, there was a new volume of Lekut HaSichot Chelek Tezayin, which is about 600 pages. It's a big book. And he saw him on the train, so he showed him there's a new volume of the Rebbe's Torah. So he said, could he borrow it? So he lent it to him. The following morning, he called him and come and get it, which meant to say that over the course of one night, he had read through the Sefer cover to cover, he no longer needed it. So I don't know if it was on that occasion or on another occasion, but Harav Chaim Zimmerman, who got to know the Rebbe quite well, there's a famous story where he once called up Rabbi Chadakov, and he told Rabbi Chadakov to tell the Rebbe in his name that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Gadol Ador. He was very impressed by some notes that the Rebbe had written him on a Sefer that he'd written and so on. But this is the quote that I wanted to share with you, which is, it's mind-blowing if you think about it. And like I said, I know who I heard it from, and I know from whom he heard it, and it's second-hand. That the Chaim Zimmerman said like this. He says, give me any Rishon, any one of the Rishonim, Rashba, Ritva, Ran, Tosfos, on any sugi in Shas, I'll tell you what he says, what he would say. In other words, we don't necessarily have Rashba on every page of the Shas. We don't have Ritva on every page of the Shas, and so on. He says, but from their approach to Torah in other places in Shas, I would tell you what they would say in every other part of the Shas. He says, the only person whose mind I cannot get to the bottom of, I can't figure him out, is the Rebbe. This is what he said, which is extraordinary. It's an unbelievable compliment. Why? Because when you think you understand how he thinks, he just changes the derech, has another approach. There's an infinity to Torah. There's an Ein Sof in Torah. And Ein Sof in Torah means you don't have one approach. You have an approach, and then you have another approach, and it goes on and on. Which is why you have in Chassidus and the Rebbe's Torah, and we're talking here about the Alter Rebbe, you can have in the Alter Rebbe's Maimorim 3, 4, or 5 different explanations of the same psukim, each one entirely distinct from the other. And it's a whole nother channel. And you see a little tiny sliver of what it means that Torah is infinite. You can never run out of Torah. The psukim are very finite. The number of words in the Tanakh, the number of words in the Chumash is very limited, and it's not changing. It's absolute. But the amount of chokhmah that can be extracted from these finite words goes ad infinitum. It never finishes. Why am I sharing this? Because here is a Maamar that goes on psukim, right? With Vayireu Elokei Yisroel, v'tachas raglov k'maisa livnes hasaper u'chetz l'shmayim l'teir, v'latzili b'nei Yisroel le'sholach es yodei, v'yechazu az Elokim v'yechlo v'yishtu. Two psukim in Parshas Mishpatim, which describe that when the Eibishter gave the Torah to Klal Yisrael, they could see Elokus, they could see godliness. And as Rashi points out, when they witnessed godliness, they behaved in a way which was less than fully reverent. There was a certain casualness about how they approached it, and as a consequence, there was a certain chiyuv of an oynesh, and the Eibishter postponed it to a later time. There's a kedim, nadav and aviyu, and so on. So the Alter Rebbe builds a Maamar. This is our third class on this Maamar. And the Maamar is built around the word regel and yad, foot and hand. And another Maamar gives you a whole different interpretation of the very, very same thing. In the Maamar that we're learning, as we're learning it, the entire Maamar revolves around this theme of yad and regel. And it seems so ancillary. It seems like such a little detail, such an insignificant aspect. And yet the Alter Rebbe built his entire understanding of these two psukim based on this idea of regel and yad. So like I'm telling you, it's part of the infinity of Torah. You can have so many different ways of approaching the same psukim, and here, the Maimarim, the Alter Rebbe is going on the word regel and the word yad, the word foot and the word hand. What is our Maamar about? Our Maamar, the previous class, this is our third, like I said, this is our third class on the Maamar. What we've learned to date is basically two ideas that we have to repeat now as we set up tonight's limud. The first idea is called Adam. The manifesting of Ein Sof, which was called Ma'oi, to the level of Adam. The significance, the meaning of this is that the Eibishter creates the world, and he wishes for there to be a relationship between himself and the world. And of course, when you say a relationship between him and the world, you don't mean him and the world. When it comes to the Eibishter himself, either everything is intimately connected, or nothing has any relationship whatsoever. There's no in between. But Getlachkeit, godliness, Elokus, pardon me, that in the realms of godliness there should be a meeting between godliness and worldliness. So godliness in its infinite plainness is called Ma'od, and there's an inverse, there's an inside-out image of the infinite plainness of godliness, which is called Adam. And we discussed at length last time how Adam is the same thing as Ein Sof. It's complex, it's diverse, but it's integrated. You have separated pieces that are strung together into a lattice, into a unity, into an achdus that's considered infinite. The perfection of the different components of Adam is such that it adds up to an Ein Sof. And of course the point is, Adam has a relationship with Adam. A human being down here on this earth is called Adam HaTachten, the man below. Elokus, Ein Sof, where it's in Atzilus, is called Adam HaElyon, the man above. Adam and Adam have a relationship. Adam and Ma'od cannot have a relationship. And of course, if you've learned Chassidus, you know that every person has a Ma'od in the Neshama, B'chol Ma'odecha, and the Ma'od Sheba Adam can meet the Ma'od in Elokus. But that's extreme, that's Mesiras Nefesh. But under normal conditions, the Adam Halmata, the Adam, the human being down here, is able to meet the Adam HaElyon, the Adam Shel Mailo. That's the first idea. And the second idea was Kisei. What is Kisei? How the Adam sits down on a throne. And of course, the concept of Kisei is that it covers, it hides. The Adam is Elokus, is Ein Sof in the Tziyat of Adam. But even though it's Elokus, the Tziyat of Adam, as it comes into the lower worlds, it's reduced further. At the lower worlds, not only don't they get Elokus, not only don't they get Ein Sof on a level of Ma'od, but even Ein Sof, as it's reformed, so to speak, that it takes on the Tziyur of Adam HaElyon, is also covered over as it comes into the Adam HaTach. And the mashal goes like this. When a person sits down on a chair, the head is lowered, the torso is lowered, and the legs dangle below the chair. The legs dangle down. And the nimshal is that when Atzilus, when Adam HaElyon sits down on the kisei covers up the higher ideas of Atzilus, and the only parts of Atzilus that descend into the lower worlds is the regel, is the feet. Now, understand that in other Maimarim, like for example in Teira Edom Bereishis, Hashmaim Kisi, V'haras Adei Meragad, is another aspect, and I talked about this last time, which is that when a person sits down, he raises his legs, puts them on a little shrafraf, on a little footstool. And of course the nimshal would be that when Adam sits down on the kisei, not only are the higher levels lowered, but the lowest level is raised, so it has no relationship with the lower worlds. And what the lower worlds are getting from Adam is a teeny tiny little trace of what Elokus is, what Adam HaElyon is. But in this Maamar, it's not explained that way. The Adam is sitting on a chair and there's no footstool. The raglayim are yered lamata. And of course the nimshal is, the point is that there's these two levels. The first level is Ein Sof coming into Adam. pardon me. And the second level is Adam descending into the lower worlds, where only the regel of Adam Ha'elyon is negated to Eim Shalmat. And like I told you earlier, as you will see momentarily, the spirit of this Maamar is going to be about the regel and about Yad. So you have a pasuk, Vayireu is Elokei Yisroel, that Har seen that the Jewish people saw Elokei Yisroel, the God of Israel. And as I was going to say in the Maamar, and we had it last week and 2 weeks ago, that this means to say that the idea that there is Adam and Atzilus is because of Yisroel. When you say that Ein Sof, that the infinite plainness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down into the orderly, complex, integrated Adam, there's a number of different ways it can be explained. There is the Adam that has to do with creation. There is Adam that's to do with Torah, and there's Adam that's to do with Neshamas Yisrael. Sometimes Atzilus is considered an Adam because they saw Torah Adam, the Torah is Adam. Sometimes Atzilus is called Adam because the world is in a tzir of Adam. And in this Maamar, it's Adam because Neshamas Yisrael collectively make up Adam. And again, the point is that from Adam, the only aspect which comes into the lower world is the regel. So let's begin to read the Biyad in Yinzeh. Let us explain further the idea that we discussed in last class, that from Ein Sof you come to Adam, and then this Adam sits down on a kisei, and only the regel of what is Adam comes into the lower world. Continues the Rebbe, he says like this. We're on line 83. What we said in the previous classes, the last 2 classes actually. As bechinas kamara Adam and Neshamas Yisrael. The idea that a Elokus takes on the likeness, the countenance of Adam that Ein Sof doesn't remain in its infinite plainness, which we're calling miyot, but descends to the level of the complex order, which is integrated and unified, called Adam, is because of Neshamas. The Jewish people make up a collective Adam, and because of the Jewish people, Elokus takes on that seed of Adam. They're called Hashem's children. However, when you say that the Yidden are the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the connotation is that they are the children of Adam Elyon. The Neshamas Yisrael down here are the children of Adam and Atzilus. Says the Rebbe, it says in Chazal, and it's explained in Chassidishe, that a child is the kara, that means the thigh, the knee, the lowest third of the father. In other words, shu bechinas regel. The idea that Neshamas Yisrael collectively make up Adam Ha'elyon, which is Atzilus, is how it is in their Shadish. From Adam Ha'elyon, which is Atzilus, which is the Shadish of Neshamas Yisrael. The Raglayim of that Adam becomes the basis of the Neshamas Yisrael in the lower world. The Pasuk says, Sheish Meyes Elef Ragli Ha'am V'Geimer. That the collective of Klal Yisrael, when compared to Moshe Rabbeinu, is called feet. And this would be the second symptom, so to speak. The first symptom is that Ein Sof comes down to the level of Adam. And the second symptom is that Adam sits down on a kisei, and only the Raglayim come into the lower worlds, and this is what Neshamas Yisrael are, the feet of Adam Ha'elyon, which is a symptom from a Eid Ha'elyon. And the Rebbe now explains, the Kmei al derech mashal haregel, when you say that Neshamas Yisrael are like the feet of Adam Ha'elyon, which is the only level of Adam Ha'elyon which comes from the higher worlds into the lower worlds, says the Rebbe, but at the same time, just like feet, betei le'etel harash are nullified, are bottled in its relationship with the head. Whatever the head wishes, that's what the feet will do. Kach, similarly, klolus Neshamas Yisrael, the collective of Jewish souls, as they come down here from Atzilus, yesh behem bechinas bittel zeh beteva. They have this bittel in their nature, that the way a Yid is born, he's batel to Elokus, a love Yisbarach to Elokus, and like it says in Tanya, chapter 19, Perek Yotes, when he talks about Teva, and it's Nigrad and Negeh to the Maamar of the Rebbe, which we happen to be learning now about Hashgacha Pratis, Pasach Eliyahu, and the Maamar of Chanukah, Tafshin Tezvav, which we happen to learning about Hashgacha Pratis, that the Rebbe brings, that the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that the word Teva zeh, Shema Mushal L'chol Davar, She'eni Bebechinas Tam V'das. Nature means something which is beyond reason. So in the regel of Elokus, which is Neshamas Yisrael down here, there's a bittel beteva, a love Yisbarach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'hi bechinas avam mitzvot. This is a natural love, a hidden love. Shebachol lechad miyisrael, which exists in the minds and hearts of every single Jew, which is beli tam v'das klas, not based on reason whatsoever. Rak lefi shein chelek adeshem ame. Why does a Yid have a capacity for Mesiras Nefesh? And like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya Perek Yud Ches, it's afilu kal shebakalim u'peish Yisrael, the most callous, careless, indifferent, and apathetic Jew is Meisem and Nefesh, is Al Harev, the Alter Rebbe says. In most cases, And they're even willing to save them. And the Alter Rebbe's point is that when a Yid's Pintel is revealed, when the Elokus of the Regel of a Yid is revealed, it's as if he has no choice. So there's a bittel, a mile, mitam vadas in the Regel. Just like a son who comes from his father's mind. That while he was in the father's mind, brain, he was one with the father. And then later on he was drawn down, has become a child unto himself. But even after the child becomes an entity unto himself, at the core, at the base, at the essence of that child is the father, and therefore we say that the love between a child and a father, the loyalty of a child to a father, called the Ava Atzma, it's like self-love. Because the child is an extension of the father. And therefore their loyalty is L'mayla mitam v'das. The same is true with Yidden and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That a Yid's capacity for Mesiras Nefesh is based on the fact that the essence of a Yid is Eibishter. The Pasuk says, Shema Yisroel, Havaya Lekeinu, the Eibishter who is our personal God. In other words, Elokei, our God. The Hainu, when do we refer to the Eibishter as Elokeinu, as our personal God, or our personal godliness? The Hainu, Shadish HaNeshama, this means the Neshama in its Shadish. The way it's included in its source and its root. L'mayla, so the way the Neshama is in Atzilos, Havaya Elokeinu, the Eibishter is his own personal God. He l'mayla bebechinas regel, it's higher than being the foot, ubechinas karadavu, or the thigh of the father, because rak misachtim im meach avad derech moshel. The way Neshamas Yisrael are in the Mayach of the Father, Havaya Elokeinu, they're one with the Eibishter. Vehem davar echad mamish, they remain one idea, Melakusi Yisbarach, with Hashem's kayach, Hashem's godliness. Says the Pasuk, Zeh Havaya Elokeinu mamish. There's a madrege where Havaya is Elokeinu mamish. The way in Neshama is in Atzilus, the energy, the Kechenu v'chayasenu, the personal vibrancy, vitality, life of a Neshama is Hashem. Rak, it is only, I'm on line 97 now, that later on, Yordu b'ishtalshlus amadreges, they descend to the steps of the chain reaction of worlds. Liyes b'china b'fnei atzmi. That the neshama, which in Atzilus is one with Elokus, now becomes separated from Elokus, v'nikra regel. It's called the foot of Elokus. And of course, as the foot of Elokus, it's now an entity unto itself, separate from Elokus. And of course, the mashal would be children and their parents. Right? What is the greatest thing parents give a child? What is the greatest, the deepest thing parents give a child? And the answer is, parents give a child their own essence, their own pnimiyas. Or to say it in different words, parents give children what their parents gave them. What is the deepest thing that parents got from their parents, what they transmit to their children? Their essence. And what is their essence? Their separateness, their independence. When a child is little, they hold on to their mother's apron. If the child grows up and continues holding on to the mother's apron, they're a cripple. They're sick. They're not healthy. The way it's supposed to be is that you're supposed to separate, become an entity unto yourself. And the nimshal is, a yid is a piece of the Eibishter, but the Eibishter designed a yid who is a piece of the Eibishter in such a way that he should become his own mitzvah. He should become separate from Elokus. It says, the Rebbe v'nikre regel. And at that point, it's called the foot of Elokus. Pardon me, because it's how Elokus has descended from Atzilus into the lower worlds. Says the Alter Rebbe, Afa became nevertheless ukara davua mamash, is the foot, the thigh of the father mamash. And as a result, yesh behem b'chinas habitl. Even though the neshama is now separate from Hashem, and the level of the neshama, which comes into the lower world, is only called regel. Nevertheless, you have this bitl. As I told you a few minutes ago, the significance of this bitl, the meaning of this bitl is eini b'chinas tam v'das. You cannot make sense out of the degree of bitl that a yid has to the Eibishter, because it's not at all rational. In other words, it's not a bitl based on reason. It's not even a bitl based on reason indirectly, which you would call chaya. It's a bitl which has no connection to reason whatsoever, which is called yechida. It's simply that a yid is a piece of the Eibishter, and the sacrifice of a yid is in effect like a sacrifice for himself, for Elokus. Which is why neshama is all down here have a bitl, gam achakach, even afterwards, mitzat shashon v'chulu, because of their root. So here the Alter Rebbe just explained the regel. right? Last week we talked about Adam and Kisei. Now we're talking what comes from this tzimtzum of Adam and second tzimtzum of Kisei, that Lamata there's Neshamas Yisroel that are the regel of Hashem. So on the one hand they're altogether bittul, on the other hand they're a thing which is batal. And the Alter Rebbe now repeats exactly the same thing. We're holding line 101 if you lost the place. Exactly the same thing, but he uses a different form. Vezehu, and just like we explained the inyan of Adam and Kisei and regel, in that sequence we can also explain the same idea using different words. We say in davening Neshama and Asata Bi, the Neshama, the Eibishter put into me, right? The Neshama is a matana that the Eibishter put into the goof of a person. So first of all, Teherei, it's on a level which is called Tahara, which you'll see momentarily about the Rega of Atzilos, and then it says Ata Barasa, the Neshama is in Bria, then it says Ata Yitzhak, then it says Ata Nefachtabi, which is a Siyah. Says the Rebbe Vayireu, Akasher, the question is famous and obvious. Eich Shayach Leime Teherei, how can you speak about the Neshama and call the Neshama pure? Kedem Shehiskir Briyasa. The next word say Ata Barasa, you created. How can Neshama be pure if it hasn't been created yet? V'gam in addition. Ma kefel gimel l'shenis. What is the meaning of the three different expressions? Brasa, Yitzarta, Nefachta. And of course the answer is obvious. The answer is the pirush teherehi. The idea that the neshama is tahir is the way the neshama is in Atzilus, or in the language of the previous shtickle, the way nishmas Adam is Adam ha'elyon. It says in our parsha, in our sequence, as the sky in itself is clear and transparent, it represents the brightness, the transparency, the plainness, the infinity of the light. Targum Tzaharayim is also Tira. Tira means pure, transparent. Says the Alter Rebbe, there's a madrega of the Neshama in Atzilus. The Neshama in Atzilus is not yet a Bria, meaning to say, the Neshama in Atzilus is not an entity unto itself. In the language, Alter Rebbe gets the Kedesh Tim and Chaf, is not yet the Yotz of a Nifreda, the Neshama in Atzilus is one with Zekas Nelakus. And the same is true also. Sheidish HaNeshama, just like when you speak about godliness, about Ein Seif, and you call it Tahir, you mean Ein Seif that has not yet taken on any form, because it's still in its plainness. The same is true of the Neshama, the way it is in Atzilus is called Tehera. The source of the Neshama is very high, and in this case it's Atzilus, and higher than Atzilus. V'zehu Tehera, here this the Pshad, the Neshama is called pure. The source of the Neshama, which is Tehera, comes from the higher transparent purity, as is discussed in Zayir. Now, this is a long conversation. There's something called Tiru Ilah, and there's something called Tiru Tato. And we hold like the Emek HaMelech, not like the Rachav. This is one of those weird cases. We don't go Kabbalah's Rachav. And we say Tehiru Ilah is Lifnei Ad Tzimtzum, Bereishu Manursa, the Malcha Gol of Galifa, but Tehiru Ilah is Lifnei Ad Tzimtzum. And Tiru Tato is Ak. And according to Kabbalah's Rachav, they're both La'achar Ad Tzimtzum. Now I don't want to give you long speeches, but remember the moment you use the word Tahara, you're putting a box on the discussion. Because above Tahara, there's Kedusha. And below Tahara, there's Achruriyas, there's Shmutz, the opposite of pure is dirty, unclean. So the Neshama is called Tahara, it's a very high level. But it's a high level within a certain framework. And a framework we're going to call it Tahara, not Kaddish. But the Neshama in Atzilus is called Tahara, and the Sheidish is Tehiru Ilah. This is the highest level of the Neshama, which corresponds to the Neshama the way it's in Adam Ha'elyon, discussed in the previous form. It's also the same idea, and it's written in the Mishnah. That goes a third way of saying the same thing, just like you have the concept of a Neshama in Atzilus, Elokei, and then it comes Lamata, it's called the Regel. You also have the idea of Teheri. Then it comes down to Brasa Yitzhak and Nefachta. The same is true in the Maamar Mishnah. You have to know, Ayim Basa, that the Neshama comes from Ayim. And he translates Shebechinas Ayinu Shemisachad Malkusa Yizbarach Batachla is the way the Neshama is in an Ayin state. It's one with godliness, Mamish. And in this case, he translates that Ayin means Atzilus. V'kanal B'pidash Adeshem Elokeinu Mamish goes on Atzilus. And in other places, by the way, Ayin will be Gan Eden Elyon, and then Lo'onat Tehelech will be Gan Eden Tachna. The Fakert, Amos State Ayin Basa is Bria, Lo'onat Tehelech is Yetzira, and Amos State Ayin Basa is Yetzira, on Tehelech is Bria. Now is not the time to have this conversation. But over here, Ayin is Atzilus. V'zehu Bechinas HaBehirus. This is the way the Neshama is totally clear, totally transparent, in total unison with its source, with Ein Seif. T'hainu she'ena yesh da b'fnei atzmei klal, it's unto itself. Says the Rebbe on line 111, Achakach Yorda. Then it descends. Lamata, the lower worlds. Bebechinas, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. Lehiyes, as it descends into the lower worlds, it's a yesh v'davar, it's an entity unto itself, which is separate from Elokus. And this is when the neshama is called the regel. The neshama in Atzilus is Tehera, the neshama in Atzilus is Ayin. I'm sorry. The neshama Atzilus is Adam. And the neshama that becomes Lamata is regel and nothing more. The three expressions is how this regel descends from Bria to Yetzirah to Asiya. So what we've done is explained that Atzilus is Adam Elyon, Mara Adam is Neshamas Yisroel, but from Adam, because of the Kisei, there's a regel. And the regel is the part of the Neshama which comes into the lower worlds, which is much less than the Neshama is in Atzilus. So, what do we know about the regel so far? We obviously know about the regel that it's far diminished from the goof that the regel is attached to, just like in a human body. The foot is the lowest part of the person. But on the other hand, we know about this regel that's altogether bottle. Its teva is bittel. Then we move on to yad, v'hine. Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Hashalom Omar, line 122. Moshe Rabbeinu says, when referencing the Jewish people, quote, Sheish meyes elef ragli ha'am asher anechi bekir bevageme b'chulu. Moshe says, the Jewish people amongst whom I dwell and over whom I preside, I lead, are raglaim, are feet compared to me, compared to Moshe Rabbeinu. And of course, Moshe Rabbeinu is called anechi. And of course, in Chassidishe, anechi goes on Atzmos Ein Sof, and so on. The bottom line is that the relationship between Moshe and his generation was like a guf and a regel. Shemavur, that if we accept this pasuk on face value, just what it says, so we may not know everything, but one thing we will know: Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Hashalom, that Moshe Rabbeinu personally is l'mayla mebechinas regel, is higher than the level of the foot. V'harayeh, he calls himself Anoichi and his generation regel. So Moshe is a yid, neshama baguf, who's not only a regel of Atzilus. Rather, the Jewish people are the raglaim of Moshe, but Moshe himself is higher. The hainu. That lafilu la'acha yiridas nishmase begufi. Even as Moshe Rabbeinu exists as a physical person on here on this earth, meir bey, what level of neshama, of godliness, is radiant, is shining, is revealed in his guf, is mebechinas shalamayla mebechinas kisei, which is above the tzimtzum, which we called in last week's class. Kisei ubechinas regel hanal, and they have a foot. So most neshamas Yisrael are regel, with the upside, which is bittel, and the downside, that there are ha'ara chitzenius from Adam Elyon, from Atzilus, that Moshe is different. And as you'll see soon, the Rebbe is going to say that Moshe is like the madrega of yadayim, hands. And he's going to correlate, he's going to compare, he's going to include in one thought the Aves and Moshe Rabbeinu. So we're on line 126 if you've lost the place. Says the Rebbe in Yinub Shetas Azoy. Al derech Maamar Zal says in Chazal, Ha'aves hein ha'merkava. The Aves, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yankov are a chariot, they're a seat for Elokus. Pardon me. And this, of course, is an allusion to Chesed, Gevurah, Teferes, which in a few minutes will be explained as the Yadayim of the Eibush and not the Raglayim. And again, the point is going to be that even the Aves, the way they come down into this world, are not Regel, they're Yad. V'yadu, it is known, the Aves hein hoyum merkava lebechinas reyes. The Aves are a chariot, they're a seat, they're a conduit for the godliness of Atzilus on the level of Zreis, of arms, as opposed to legs. Avraham lebechinas chesed dreya yamin. Avraham is the chesed, which is the right arm. Yitzchak lebechinas dreya small. Yitzchak is gevurah, which is the left arm. B'chulu. And of course, bechinas dreya is the Adam Elyon when you're talking about the arms of Adam Elyon. And in the Lashon, not pasuk. Ve'el atzili b'nei Yisroel le'shalach yodei, as opposed to v'tachas raglov. Who al derech mashal mayla mebechinas kisei kanal. Just like when you gave the example of a chair, it is the feet that dangle down below the chair, and the torso and the head that remain above the kisei, the concealment of the chair. The same is true in the nimshal. What of atzilus? What of Adam comes into the lower world as regel? Mashein ken yad is above it, and the Aves and Moshe Rabbeinu, as they are neshamas begufim down here, are representative of the madrega of yad above the tzimtzum of kisei. The pshat is the mavu elamayla. We discussed last week at length the bechinas kisei, the concept of kisei, which is of course case aleph, covering over the aleph, hu alavush v'hamasach, as a garment and a screen. Hamaylem al ha'ed, which further hides the light of Atzilus. In other words, even though Atzilus itself, in as much as it's called Adam, is a huge tzimtzum from the Madrega of Moed, but even Adam of Atzilus is Ein Seif, and the world is not able to receive it as it is. So there's a second tzimtzum which is affected by Kisei. And as a result of the tzimtzum of Kisei, what comes Lamata is only Regel. And what level of godliness from Atzilus? What level of godliness of Neshamas Yisroel from Atzilus? And if I may add, what level of Teda comes Lamata is like the Raglayim Nimshachim Lamata de Kisei Levush Hanal. The aforementioned seat and the garment that it represents affect that the godliness which comes from heaven to earth, from Atzilus to the lower world, is relatively speaking like Raglayim. But Atzilus, besides having legs, has also arms. What's the difference between arms and legs? Obviously, the feet are Nehi, and the Yadayim, the arms, are Chagas, which is an obvious difference. But in this moment, there's a different emphasis. That is, that the Regel is underneath the Kisei. The Regel's been cut off from Atzilus to some extent by the chair. Mashenkin, the Yadayim, they're Atzilus itself. Says the Rebbe on line 133, Ava b'chinas hayadayim, but the arms, ugili b'chinas shalamayla mi'alavush v'helim zeh. The arms represents godliness, which is above this garment and concealment. In other words, v'hugiloi b'chinas teheirehi v'cholu. It's the revelation of neshama, the atzilus level of the neshama, which is called teheirehi, shalamayla b'chinas berasa, which is above the level of bria, and certainly above the level of yitzarta, which is yitzira, and the level of nefachta, which is asiya. And the way they are down here in this world, they continue to be the yadayim of atzilus. So all creations that come from Regel, the Regel is a symptom of Gabi atzilus. Neshamas of Moshe Rabbeinu and the Ovis, because they're the yadayim, the way they come into this world, they're still atzilus. For Ovis and Moshe Rabbeinu olav shalom, you're talking about Ovis and Moshe Rabbeinu, Hayu Merkava, they were down here a seat, lebechinas gili erzet, to the revelation of this kind of a light. For Hainu, in different words, Aidei Hayu Merkava. The Ovis were in a state of Merkavas. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Merkava, B'kol Yameim Kol Levereim Kulam. They were K'deish and Muvdalam Elam Azevelein as Merkava for anything except for Lakus Kol Yameim. In other words, the Ovis were so holy that their eating and their sleeping was also Avodas Hashem, to the extent of Merkava. And of course, the story that supports this, that corroborates this, is the Maisim with the Mizitcha Magid and Rabbi Nagadol Mekalin. Rabbi Nagadol Mekalin was from the Gdolei Talmidei Magid, from the greatest Talmidim of the Mizitcha Magid. He passed away at the age of 30, I think, very, very young. And he had a minig that Erev Shabbos he would say Shir Hashirim, as is the minig by a lot of communities. The Rebbe discusses and wonders why we don't say Shir Hashirim. I think the Rebbe brings down that the Alter Rebbe once said that he would be mevater on Kabbalah Shabbos, on Lechun Ran, on Lechadeidi, the Chassidim should say instead Shir Hashirim. The Rebbe sort of mentions that we're not sure if you say it in the winter or the summer. The bottom line is that Tzadikim, Kubalim, and a lot of other communities say Shir Hashirim on Friday night every week. It's not our minhag, even though the Rabbeim seem to be inclined towards the recitation of Shir Hashirim. But the story is, it was Erev Shabbos, and of course the minig is that Erev Shabbos, before Shabbos, a time of sleep, the Mita, and the Mizitcha Magid lay down for his pre-Shabbos rest. And by Tzadikim, they don't have to go to sleep, they would fall asleep. There's a word from the Rebbe Rashab that the Rebbe Hillel Parashah Tzargelekt, Erev Shabbos, Rebbe Hillel Parashah did everything up in Kabbalah, so he lay down for a nap. He says, the Alter Rebbe is eingeschlafen. Alter Rebbe didn't put himself to sleep, he fell asleep. In fact, it seems indicated that he fell asleep in film, Shinas Arai. He says, Rebbe Hillel, ich halt von Rebbe Hillel, said the Rebbe Rashab, I have a very high opinion of him, but if Azei fil benechem netcheshish, I don't think he would fall asleep, because it was a Merkava Telakus, he would put himself to sleep. So the story is that it was Erev Shabbos, and the Maggid needed to sleep, and he couldn't. Why? Because in the other room, in another building, the Aaron HaGadol was saying Shir Hashirim, and it made such a rash lamayla that he couldn't sleep. So the Mizitcha Maggid sent a message to the Aaron HaGadol, Shir Hashirim, that he should stop. The Aaron HaGadol stopped saying Shir Hashirim, so the Maggid could sleep. And as in Lashon HaGemara, Shmamin Atlas, we learn from here that Rabbi Aaron HaGadol Shir Hashirim was so great that it made a rash lamayla. We learn from here that the Mizitcha Maggid's sleep was so important that he couldn't be mevater on it. And we learn from here that the sleep of the Mizitcha Maggid was in a higher madreged than the Shir Hashirim of Aaron HaGadol Mekalin. It's Taicha Merkava. That not just when you're learning in your davening, every single tnu is a bittul telakus. This is the madrega of the Ovis and Moshe Rabbeinu. This is the madrega of Atzilus. And this is the idea that down here, they're the madrega of Yadayim. So it's not just a question of Yadayim versus Raglayim. At most, you're at the level of Regel. and the Ovis and Meish Rabbi, the level of Yad, but the level of Regel is after the Tzimtzum of Kisei. Mashenk and Yadayim is the way they are in Atzilos, above the Tzimtzum of Kisei. V'hainu Aidei Shahoyu Merkava. Through being a Merkava, B'chin is Bittel Tmidi Mamish. In total, Bittel Telakus, Aidei Zem Shicha Gilu Kozeh. Down here in this world, there was the Bittel of Atzilos. So now we have two ideas. One idea is that all Jewish people down here in the Shomas Yisroel Lamata Ala Madrega of Regel, feet. That the foot obviously is totally diminished in terms of its life and its purpose compared to the brain, but at the same time it's totally bottled to the brain. And the same is true of the Yad. But according to what we're now learning, the difference between Yad and Regel, between arm and foot, is not only one level higher or one level lower, it's the difference between Atzilos, and the Atzilos comes into the lower world. So the Rebbe owes us an explanation. How different is a hand from a foot? And what follows, we're on line 137, is an understanding of the difference between Yad and Regel. Let's let the Alter Rebbe do the talking, and then you'll decide if you understand what he's saying. In other words, I'm not so sure I understand on a basic level, on a deep level, what's the difference between Yad and Regel. But the Alter Rebbe here is drawing a clear separation from the word Yad, being a Mekav Elokus above Kisei, and the Regel, which is being a Mekav Elokus, which is beneath Kisei. Obi Yeroinyan Hu. Line 137 to explain the difference between a Yid whose neshama down here is the foot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and a Yid down here whose neshama is the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's analyze the difference between the way hands are bottled to a person and the way feet are bottled to a person. So the Rebbe says like this. Shayadayim, that the hands, yesh behen gili amechen v'seichel yesem miberaglayim. The fact of the matter is that the hands are far greater conductors of what the mind and the creativity of a person is than are the feet. With your hands you can draw, with your hands you can write, with your hands you can play music, and so on. That the arms are a greater conduit, have a greater ability to fuse, to unify, to become one with the ideas and the sensitivities as they are in the brain, than is possible for the feet. Line 140. Even though the foot is also bottled to the head, to the extent that whatever the head says, the feet will listen. Nevertheless, there's a difference. What's the difference? Now listen carefully. When you say that the foot does what the body, what the mind tells it, what the neshama tells it, it's true, but it's not passive. It has to be a deliberate act of commanding the foot to move, and once that deliberate act takes place, haregel nishmas, let's see whether the foot responds, but it responds to a command. The way the arms respond is different. Because nasa memela kfirat nasecha, they're a natural byproduct of what the mind's will is. The hands don't have to be told, they move automatically. So listen to this. Your feet are bottled to your brain. Your arm is bottled to your brain. The Rebbe here makes a distinction. Your feet is bottled to your brain and it responds to a command. Your arms are bottled to your brain, and therefore whatever the brain is busy with, the hands are doing. Now where do you see this difference? So he continues. As we see the difference between a person who's in a very good mood or in any kind of a very extreme emotional state, how do the arms respond versus how do the feet respond? That bein tipuach b'yadav, how the hands move or the hands clap, lerikot sheberaglav versus how the feet move when the feet dance. Shekasher yihi adam besimcha, when a person's in a joyous state, miyad yitapeach b'yadav, the movement of the hands are involuntary. If you're in an energetic state, your hands move. I know sheyare b'yadav tenu, your arms are going to demonstrate a movement, a motion, hameir ala simcha, which are going to demonstrate incredible joy, k'mei lahakes kaf, to clap your hands, v'chulu. Mash'enkin b'raglayim, as opposed to the feet. That sheyiyeh nimshach mezeh shiyurikt, that a person should be so happy as to dance Hu einay nasa b'meila. It's not passive. Elokei yihi, unless there will be tzivoy v'hamshacha, a command and a drawing forward of an inspiration, me'aseichel, from the mind, l'ragav, to the feet, l'irkei, to dance, v'cholu, and so on. Now, our job here is not to question the Alter Rebbe. Our job is to try and understand what the Alter Rebbe is saying. Let's read two more lines. V'chein al derech zeh, b'sharei tnuah, it's true of any other kind of motion. Yihi b'yadis havas hatnuah me'meila. The arms move involuntarily, based on what's going on in the mind, as we see vividly in fact. As opposed to feet, it's true that they're totally bittul, but their response, their acting based on what the head says, is not automatic, it's rak al pi hatziva, they have to be commanded, which is fantastic. Think about this. What's he saying? When you're happy, right? Think about this. A person is happy. And because they're happy, the body demonstrates what's going on in the heart. If inside there's a lot of emotional energy, it's going to spill over into your body. And of course, it's not just true when you're in a great state of joy, it's also true when you're in a great state of disappointment or sadness or fear. Says the Rebbe, your arms respond to your emotions involuntarily. Because there's a feeling inside your heart, your body, your arms say those emotions without you having to deliberate them. But that your feet should declare how happy you are, or your feet should declare how sad you are. This happens because you say to the legs, move. Once you say to the legs, move, the legs move instantaneously. They're totally bottled. But it's not involuntary. Now you and I could start debating how we understand this. How do you see this? I was thinking, I don't know, but I was thinking the way to explain this is like, for example, when a person is walking. Yeah, when you walk because you're told your legs to move. Your legs to move. And you're walking deliberately. You're making the decision to walk. And when you walk, your arms move. You're not telling your arms to move. They're a byproduct of the event, the motion of walking. So the feet are told what to do, and the arms just do it. I can't think of another example which would provide insight into this and the reverse. But the Alter Rebbe says, when your arms respond to what's going on in your mind, you don't have to tell the arms, they just respond. When your regel responds and your legs respond to what's going on in your mind, you have to tell them to do so. So we can question the Alter Rebbe, and we can say, let's understand the Alter Rebbe. What the message of the Alter Rebbe, as it relates to the bigger issue, is that feet are bottled to the head, arms are bottled to the head, but the bittul of the arms to the head is basically different than the bittul of the feet to the head, because it's a natural byproduct. And of course, the nimshal is going to be the difference between Mesha and the Aves and the rest of us. Line 150, Vezer Ayamerura, which is an explicit, which is a clear, which is a satisfactory proof. Shabiyadayim, that the difference in the bittul which are in the arms, and the difference in the bittul which is in the regel is as follows. That in Yadayim is Gilead Seichel Yeser, in the arms is a great revelation of intelligence. Achenim Shach and Me'elehem, that the arms are drawn involuntarily, passively, after the thought of one's mind, as though they're not something unto themselves. The arms respond, as opposed to the feet, that the feet are also bottled, but they have to be commanded to respond. Says the Rebbe, Nimshal Yuvan. This is a mashal, and the nimshal is to explain the difference between most neshamas and neshamas of Avis and Mesha Rabbeinu. Most neshamas are regel; they're also bottled to Elokos, but they need to be commanded. The Avis and Mesha Rabbeinu are like arms which are bottled, but they need not be commanded. They automatically respond. They naturally respond. Shazeh Hefesh, it's the distinction between Malas Avis and Mesha Rabbeinu Alav Shalom, between the level of Avis and Mesha Rabbeinu and the rest of us. Shahayu, they were, pardon me, Bechin, as Merkava, a chariot for Lakusu, Betelim, the Gamid of his Baruch altogether, Batal Takadish Baruch Kilu, as if Einan Yeshudav and Nifrit cloud, Bifniatzmam cloud. Even though their neshamas also come down into this world, even though neshamas also come down into a guf gashmi, and as such they're separate from Elokus, as they are down here, it's as though they're one with Elokus. V'lei pasku, to me, the milekasher daitam, they never interrupted the perpetual bittul and attachedness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'bittul, and now with the aforementioned bittul, afilu rega echad, for one instant. Lachain, as a consequence, hoyu merkava, they remain a seat, a chariot, lebechines reyes elam, to the arms of the world. In other words, to the arms of Atzilos, shalamaylu bechinas kisei umasa. Down here in the Neshama B'Guf, the Ovis and Moshe Rabbeinu represent the godliness of Atzilus, the arms of Atzilus, which is above the keys. In other words, they're revealing godliness lamata. Ulamaylam b'chinas regel b'chol amash einkin shad neshamas tzadikim as opposed to other neshamas. Even the neshamas of other tzadikim shaloi higiyu leb'chinos together bittul zehatmidi. They're not standing in a perpetual state of bittul, that they're so bottle that you would be able to say of their bittul that it's involuntary. They're not bittling themselves. They're bittled by their source. They arouse within themselves. They awake within themselves a bittul telekus. V'espilus, however, yet in a part of that bittul is the emotional responses of love and fear. Says the Rebbe, that's quote only, end quote, the level of feet. What does it mean? Feet. It's bottled to the seichel, and bottled to the seichel in an absolute and in a passive way. But it's not involuntary, it has to be deliberated. It have to be a command and an inspiration that comes from the seichel, that there should be the bittul in the raglayim. His abundance, this is love which is aroused through contemplation, not naturally. Says the Rebbe. So in these psukim, Vayireu Elokei Yisroel v'tachas raglav, v'letzili b'nei Yisroel l'sholach es yodei. There's a reference to the Eibishter's legs and the Eibishter's arms. What are the Alpi Kabbalah? Alpi Kabbalah, that the level of Atzilus which goes through Tzimtzum to come Lamata, that's Regel. And the level of Atzilus which also comes Lamata, but it hasn't gone through Tzimtzum. And of course in the later classes we'll see further what the significance of this union of Yad V'Regel is. But that's what this Maamar does. It takes a detail in a pasuk and builds the whole Maamar around that detail. That there's two madregas. Most neshamas Yisroel, the madrega of regel. Also a bottle, but the bittul is requiring a deliberate act. It's not involuntary. Therefore, when referencing the people of his generation, they were an incredibly great generation. They're a deya, which technically means they were neshamas of Atzilus. Nevertheless, they're a regel, because they are Atzilus as it comes through regel, which is lamatam and akise, which is a tzimtzum. Mashenkin hu atzme, as opposed to Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Asher anechi bekir beider in Moshe Rabbeinu does a madriga of anechi. Pardon me, which we called earlier Yad, which is lamay lamabechinas regel, above the madriga of regel. K'meshikosav lakamen and Hashem is going to explain later. So we learned tonight one more thing. Last week we learned about Adam versus Ein Seif. Last week we also learned about Kisei versus Adam. And this week we learned about Regel and Yad. Regel means the way the Kisei is Ma'alim U'Mastir, and Yad means where the Kisei is not Ma'alim U'Mastir. And in Mitzvah Hashem next week we're going to discuss how this idea itself exists by every single Yid, the level of Regel and the level of Yad.